Hey friends, we're here in the Meredith Restoration History Archive at Harding School of Theology Library, and we want to kind of invite you into our world for a moment because today is International Septuagint Day. Who knew there was such a thing? I want to find out more about this, so we're here with our dean, Dr. Alan Black. What's going on here?
Well, to begin with, maybe we should talk about what the Septuagint is.
Yeah.
Because the Septuagint, well, the word Septuagint is from the Latin word that means 70.
Okay.
And it was a translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek. It began somewhere around the 3rd century BC, was probably completed in the 2nd century BC. And the story that was written in the 2nd century BC in the Epistle to Aristeas is that Ptolemy II got 72 Jewish scholars, sent them into separate rooms to translate the scriptures, and they all came out with identical translations.
A miracle.
So, yes, absolutely. And so you round 72 to 70, and it gets named the Septuagint, and its symbol is LXX, the Roman numerals for 70.
And so now this is something that like the people who wrote the Gospels would have been reading sometimes as their Bible, like.
That's right. Everyone who spoke Greek in that world of the 1st century AD would have known about the Septuagint, which was a Greek translation, the earliest translation we know of the Hebrew scriptures. And in fact, some of the Septuagint, copies of some of those are found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. And one of the best examples we have of it is the Old Testament portion of Sinaiticus. This is a photographic copy of what Sinaiticus would look like. Sinaiticus and some other ancient manuscripts, this comes from the 4th century AD, are copies that we use to reconstruct what the Septuagint originally would have looked like.
Okay, and so now we know what it is, and we know how we got it. February 8th?
February 8th. It comes from an emperor whose name was Justinian, and he reigned for about 40 years in the 6th century. And in 553 AD, in the middle of the 6th century, he published a law, and that law was that he wanted the Jews in various synagogues throughout the Roman Empire to read their scriptures and to read them in Latin and to read them in Greek. And for Greek, he recommended the translation of the 70 because he said it was the best known. That was February the 8th, 553. And he wanted them to become Christians by reading their Old Testament in Greek, a language they knew, and then through that to see Christ.
So you will never think of February 8th quite the same as you do now, because you know it's International Septuagint Day. And if you want to find a copy of this, they are available. There are versions of the Septuagint somebody can buy.
They're Greek ones and very small, very, very compact, not anything like this. But there's also a New English translation of the Septuagint. It was made using the New Revised Standard Version as a guide. And everywhere that the Septuagint differs from what we'd have in the Hebrew Bible in the New Revised Standard Version, they tried to make that pretty clear in the way that they translated the Septuagint. So it's basically a New Revised Standard Version of the Greek translation. And of course, translation always involves interpretation.
That's right.
So it gives us a way to know something about how the Bible was interpreted in the 3rd and 2nd century BC by the Jews, and how it was interpreted and understood by New Testament writers, many of whom had copies of the Septuagint and worked from the Septuagint.
Okay, this is all really interesting. So you can go and you can look up an English version of the Septuagint. Mm-hmm. You could read, there are book forms, like if you came to a library, a theological library, you can read a Septuagint that way. You can also just come into a place like this, we'll let you in, and you can look at a Septuagint that way. And so that might be a way every year for you to celebrate February 8th. Dr. Black, thanks for sharing a little bit about that.
Absolutely. One more brief thing.
One more. We have one more.
That is that the New English translation of the Septuagint is on the web in electronic form. So you can just get on your computer and look it up.
Or your
Go
phone.
out tonight, take your wife out, and celebrate International Septuagint Day.
How romantic. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.